The hail was relentless, hammering rooftops, denting cars, and turning the entire city into a blur of shattered ice and panic. People ran for shelter, umbrellas flipped inside out, alarms screamed, and winds clawed at the streets like something out of a nightmare. But Elias Rowan, the famously cold, famously unreachable CEO of Rowan Tech, moved through the storm as if it were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. His suit soaked, his jaw clenched, his eyes set on the ground. He didn't care. Not tonight. Tonight was the anniversary. 3 years since he lost his wife. 3 years since the world demanded he move on. 3 years since he'd stopped believing in kindness, hope, or second chances. He tightened his coat and walked faster. The storm was just noise, until he heard a scream. A small one. Hi. Terrified. Cut off halfway through. Elias froze. Another scream. This time followed by a cry for help. He didn't think, he ran. Through the icy needles of hail. Through the roaring wind. Past overflowing gutters and sliding cars. Until he saw her. A tiny figure huddled near a street lamp, shielding her head with a thin backpack as chunks of ice the size of fists slammed into the pavement around her. A little girl. No older than 7. She was shaking uncontrollably, her breath fogging in frantic bursts. Her jacket was too big, her shoes too small, and her eyes, wide, terrified, locked onto Elias the moment he approached. "Don't come closer," she cried, throwing out her arm as if she could defend herself. Elias stopped instantly. He knew fear. He recognized the kind that came from life, not weather. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly, hands raised. "I'm just trying to help." Another shard of ice slammed inches from her foot. She flinched violently, slipping on the wet pavement. And that's when Elias saw it. Her knee bleeding, scraped raw. She must have fallen trying to run. Lightning split the sky. Elias made a decision. He took off his coat and held it open like a shield. "Look," he said, his voice steady in a way he didn't even recognize anymore. "You don't have to come to me. I'll come to you." "No," the girl cried again, then winced, curling into herself as hail struck her arm. "My mom told me not to talk to strangers." He stepped closer, slowly. "I understand," he said softly. "But your mom would want you safe." Her lips quivered. Then, she whispered something so soft, so broken, he almost missed it. "Mom isn't here anymore." Elias's chest clenched. He swallowed hard. A single dad. A lonely child. A storm that demanded a choice. He bent on one knee, leveling himself with her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl hesitated, then whispered. "Lyra." "That's a beautiful name," Elias said. "Lyra, I need you to trust me for just 30 seconds. Let me get you out of this storm. You're freezing." But Lyra wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at his face. Her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open slightly. Then she said something that made the entire world stop. "My mom used to tell me about you." Elias felt the ground drop beneath him. What? His mind raced. He had never seen this child. Never met her mother. Never crossed paths with her family. "So how do you know me?" he asked softly, thunder rumbling in the background. Lyra's voice shook with cold and something else. She said. Her breath hitched. "She said that if I ever found you, I would be safe." Lightning flashed. Thunder cracked. The air stilled. Elias felt something shift inside him, something he thought had died the day he buried his wife. A protective instinct. A deep, unexplainable connection. A strange sense that this moment was fate. "Lyra," he whispered, opening his coat wider. "We're getting out of here. I promise. You're safe with me." The little girl hesitated only a second before she ran into his arms, clutching his shirt with tiny, trembling hands. Elias wrapped her in his coat, shielding her from the storm. He lifted her effortlessly, her small frame shaking against his chest. "Hold on," he said. "I've got you." As he ran toward his car, her head rested on his shoulder, and she whispered the same sentence again, her voice trembling but certain. "My mom used to tell me about you." Elias didn't know it yet, But this night, this storm, this girl, would break open a truth he never imagined. A truth that would change both of their lives forever. The storm eased only slightly by the time Elias carried Lyra to his car. Hail still thudded against the roof, bouncing off the hood like marbles, but inside, the warmth felt almost unreal, like stepping into another world. Lyra clung to Elias's coat, her tiny fingers gripping tightly as if afraid he would disappear. Elias fastened the seatbelt around her carefully, making sure not to touch her injured knee. She hissed softly in pain. "We'll clean it up soon," he murmured. She nodded gently, her wet hair sticking to her cheeks. The car engine hummed to life, and they drove through the tense, storm-darkened streets. Street lights flickered. Water flowed like streams along the gutters. And Lyra occasionally glanced at him, as though studying him, comparing him to someone she once knew. Elias tried to stay composed, but his mind kept spinning.
"My mom used to tell me about you."
Those words echoed again and again. He cleared his throat. "Lyra, what did your mother say about me?" Lyra's fingers twisted the end of Elias's coat sleeve. Her voice was so small he had to strain to hear it. "She said that you were a good man." Elias stiffened. "That doesn't sound like me," he whispered under his breath. Lyra heard it. Her eyes softened with a calm wisdom far beyond her years. "She said you used to smile a lot. Before something happened." Elias gripped the steering wheel, knuckles whitening. Memories clawed at him, his wife, Clara, laughing beside him, teasing him, loving him. Lyra continued, barely above a whisper. "My mom said you saved people, that you always helped those who needed it, that you had a heart that listened." Elias swallowed hard. "I don't remember doing anything like that recently." "Maybe you forgot," Lyra said simply, with the sincerity only a child could offer. "Maybe someone just needed to remind you." He glanced at her, this soaked, trembling little girl who somehow spoke like she already knew him. He didn't understand it. He couldn't. And yet something in Lyra's face was familiar. Not in appearance, no, but in spirit, in gentleness, in the way her eyes fought to stay brave even when fear trembled beneath. He had seen eyes like that before. He had loved eyes like that before. Clara. When they reached Elias's penthouse, he carried Lyra inside. Warm golden lights flicked on, illuminating the sleek marble floors, tall glass walls, and minimalist furniture. Lyra's mouth parted slightly in awe. "Wow, it's so big." Elias removed his coat from her shoulders and wrapped her in a soft blanket instead. "I don't usually have guests," he explained, "but tonight you're safe here." Her smile was faint, but grateful. The first thing he did was fetch a first aid kit. Lyra sat quietly on the sofa, her feet dangling off the edge as Elias kneeled in front of her, cleaning the wound carefully. She winced a bit. "I'm sorry," he said. "You're very gentle for someone who looks so serious," she whispered. Elias blinked, surprised by her honesty, and felt something loosen inside him. He wasn't used to being seen. Once her wound was bandaged, he brought her warm soup and a dry set of clothes that belonged to his late wife's charity collection. They fit loosely, but Lyra didn't mind. While she ate, Elias finally sat across from her. "Lyra," he said carefully, "I need to know where your mom is. Is she looking for you?" The spoon froze midway to Lyra's lips. Her eyes darkened. "My mom." She swallowed hard. "She passed away 2 months ago." Elias's breath caught. He leaned forward instinctively. "Lyra, I'm so sorry." She nodded once, but her lips trembled. "I was living with my aunt after that. But today she left me at the store. She said she'd come back, but she didn't." Her voice cracked. "I waited and waited until the storm started, and then I got lost. I tried to run home, but the hail." Her voice broke completely, and the tears she had been holding back finally spilled. Elias moved without thinking. He sat beside her, gently placing an arm around her shoulders. Lyra leaned into him, carefully at first, then fully, like a child who had carried too much for far too long. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said quietly.
And he meant it.
The promise surprised him but felt right. After a while, Lyra straightened and wiped her cheeks. My mom said that if I ever lost my way, I should find the man named Elias Rowan, because he would protect me. Elias's chest tightened painfully. Why would she say that? He asked softly. Did I know her? Lyra hesitated, then turned her gaze toward a photo frame on the shelf. A picture of Elias and Clara, smiling on their wedding day. She pointed. That's her. Elias's heart stopped. Her who? He whispered. Lyra's voice was small, trembling, but clear. My mom. Her name was Clara Rowan. The world spun. The room blurred. Elias felt his breath tear from his lungs.
No.
No, this couldn't be. Clara had died 3 years ago. His Clara.
His wife.
His soulmate. He stared at Lyra, confusion and shock gripping him like a vice. Lyra, he said slowly, Clara was my wife. But we never had children. Lyra shook her head gently. My mom said there were things she never got to tell you. She said you were hurting so much already, and she didn't want to add more pain. Elias's pulse roared in his ears. What are you saying? He whispered. Lyra reached into her small backpack, tattered, wet, and frayed, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to him with trembling fingers. My mom told me that if anything ever happened to her, I should give you this. Elias unfolded the paper slowly. His breath hitched. It was Clara's handwriting. His knees weakened. His throat closed. His hands shook so violently, he almost dropped the letter. He forced himself to read. Elias. If Lyra ever finds you, it means I couldn't stay long enough to explain. She is yours. She has always been yours. The world shattered. Elias felt his entire being collapse inward. Lyra. Clara. A secret daughter. His daughter. His chest ached with equal parts joy, shock, grief, and unimaginable regret. He looked at Lyra, tears burning behind his eyes. Lyra, is this true? He whispered, voice breaking. Lyra nodded silently, her own tears pooling. My mom said she didn't want to burden you after she got sick. She said you were already drowning in work and sadness. She wanted you to heal before you met me. Elias covered his mouth with his hand, trying, failing, to hold himself together.
His daughter.
His little girl. Right in front of him.
Lost.
Cold.
Alone.
And he hadn't known. Lyra's small voice broke into a sob. I'm sorry if you don't want me. Elias pulled her into his arms instantly. No, he whispered fiercely. His voice shook with emotion. No, Lyra, I want you. I want you more than anything in this world. Lyra's tiny hands gripped his shirt as her tears soaked into his chest. Elias held her tightly, feeling something mend inside him, something he thought would never heal. The storm outside finally began to quiet. But inside the penthouse, inside Elias's heart, something new was starting. Something fragile. Something painful. Something beautiful. A family he didn't know he lost. A daughter he didn't know he had. A second chance at a life he thought was gone. And tomorrow, he would face the truth the letter hadn't yet revealed. The truth that would change everything again.